You're staring at a blank wall of possibilities, wondering if you should drop a few $100s on a monitor that promises quantum.OLED and 240 Hz and hoping it won't end up as a pricey paperweight. I get that feeling, especially when you've probably already spent a good chunk on a decent PC or console and the last thing you want is to waste money on something that looks great on paper but feels off in real life. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm going to walk through what the msi MPG 321URX actually brings to a typical gaming or creative setup, where it shines, and where it might leave you wishing you'd gone a different direction. First off, let's talk about the kind of space this thing lives in. It's a 31.5-inch panel, which puts it right in the sweet spot between a desktop-oriented 27-inch display and a full-blown TV-size screen. In a standard desk-to-eye distance of about 2 feet, that size gives you enough real estate to comfortably see the ultra-high-definition 3840x2160 resolution without having to crane your neck. If you're used to a 1080p or even a 1440p monitor, the jump to native 4K is immediately noticeable. Textures in games look crisper, UI elements in design apps become sharper, and you can actually read small text without scaling everything up. That's a concrete benefit that goes beyond the more pixels marketing line. Now, the OLED part is where the experience diverges from a typical LCD. Because each pixel emits its own light, you get true blacks that look like a void rather than a washed-out dark gray. In dark shooters or atmospheric RPGs, that contrast makes the difference between a shadow that feels immersive and one that just looks like a flat overlay. The True Black HDR 400 certification means the monitor can punch out highlights up to a respectable brightness while keeping those deep shadows intact, which is something you'll notice if you've ever been frustrated by HDR looking muted on a regular panel. One of the big selling points MSI advertises is the 240 Hz refresh rate paired with a 0.03 milliseconds gray-to-gray response time. In theory, that's a recipe for buttery smooth motion, and in practice it does translate to a noticeable reduction in motion blur when you're playing fast-paced titles like Valorant or Call of Duty. The high refresh rate also gives you a little wiggle room if your GPU can't consistently hit 144 frames per second. You'll still see a fluid experience rather than stuttering at a lower frame rate. However, there's a hidden trade-off. To actually drive that 240 Hz at 4K, you need a very powerful graphics card, think an RTX 4090 or the latest AMD equivalent. If you're still on a mid-range card, you'll likely be capped at 144 Hz or lower, which means you won't be fully exploiting the monitor's top spec. That's not a flaw in the monitor, just a reality check on what the rest of your rig needs to deliver. Let's get into the connectivity and ergonomics because those are the day-to-day details that affect whether you'll actually use the monitor or push it to the back of the desk. The MPG 321URX offers a full-featured USB-C port delivering up to 90 W of power, which means you can connect a laptop, charge it, and drive a 4K display all through a single cable. For a creator who moves between a workstation and a portable setup, that's a huge convenience. The monitor also includes HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 1.4, so you can hook up a next-gen console or a high-end PC without needing adapters. The QD-OLED switch built into the panel lets you toggle between two computers with a single keyboard and mouse, which is a subtle but powerful workflow boost if you run a work PC and a gaming rig side by side. Adjustability is another practical angle. The stand lets you tilt, swivel, pivot, and even adjust height, which is a must for long gaming sessions or for aligning the screen perfectly when you're using it as a color-critical reference for video work. The Mystic Light RGB on the back is more of an aesthetic flourish than a functional feature, but if you enjoy a synced lighting setup, it adds a nice visual cue without being obnoxious. So, who should actually consider buying this monitor? If you're a competitive gamer who already has a top-tier GPU and you value the combination of ultra-fast refresh, near-instant response, and deep blacks for titles that thrive on contrast, this is a compelling package. It also makes sense for visual artists or video editors who need a wide color gamut. MSI claims a 99% DCI-P3 coverage and 10-bit color depth, which means you'll see more accurate hues straight out of the box compared to most standard gaming panels. The OLED Care System, version 2.0, helps mitigate burn-in risk by shifting static elements and providing a screensaver-style routine, so even if you're worried about static HUDs, MSI has taken steps to protect the panel over long periods. On the flip side, if you're gaming on a mid-range graphics card, you'll be limited in how much of that 240Hz you can actually use.